Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you guys are having a great Wednesday. We're going to take a look at a couple of stories. One, obviously, is going to be on the Fed. They had the meeting. Fed Powell commented today. We're going to take a look at some of the comments that he did make. I'll give you my thoughts on it as well. And then we're going to take a look at Marathon. They paid off a lot of their debt here. We're going to take a look at that. And then we're also going to take a look at how the miners have performed. Well, not really performed, but how have they done over the last year. So we're going to take a look at from last August of 2022 to this year of August 2023 on Bitcoin's mined for the month of August and also their hash rate. Did they increase their hash rate? Did they increase their Bitcoin production as well? We're going to take a look at it and how it actually impacts, well, them going forward potentially if they don't keep up with the network hash rate. Okay, so we're going to take a look at those things. And as always, you guys know this is not financial advice for entertainment only. Please do your own research. And I'm investing in the following coins and companies for full disclosure. And as always, if you guys enjoy this type of content, hit the like button, subscribe, helps me out tremendously. And I do appreciate you guys watching here. So let's take a look at, obviously, what the Fed said first. We'll get into that. And then maybe if we have time, we'll take a look at Bitcoin, what's going on with that. But obviously, the Fed calls for soft landing a primary objective. We know that the inflation has gone up a little bit here in August, which we got the data for. I didn't cover it, but you guys obviously know about that. And they're trying to do a soft landing, which would be nice. How likely is that to happen? Time will tell, obviously. But here's what we have to go by. So Fed Chair Jerome Powell reaffirmed Wednesday that the central bank is still chasing an elusive soft landing, even as he acknowledged that that executing a tightening campaign without triggering a widespread downturn is not the baseline expectation, but rather a plausible outcome. Okay, so that makes sense, right? He's trying to get a soft landing. And that's why they paused on today. Well, they announced they're pausing the interest rate hikes, but they said that they would not rule out another interest rate hike down the road here in 2023. So obviously the markets reacted to that. Bitcoin was down today. Markets were down today as well. Miners were down for the most part as well today. But we'll take a look at those here later on possibly. And here's what he had to say. A soft landing is a primary objective, Powell said during Wednesday's Fed policy press conference. That's what we've been trying to achieve for all this time. They've done a pretty good job here bringing the inflation down. Obviously, we went up a little bit here in August, but that's mainly, I think, due to just gas prices going up, right? Saudi Arabia has, lowered their production of crude oil, gasoline, basically, and that's having an impact on that. So that's obviously going up, which is obviously going to have an impact on other things that we buy as well, because transportation, whether it's on trucks, rail, whatever it might be, is going to cost more. So there is some fear in that as well. But the interest rates are pretty high right now, so we'll see how those continue. And a soft landing is generally understood as a successful tightening cycle where the Fed raises rates just enough to slow the economy and cool inflation without slowing it too much to force a recession. Recession is usually considered, 2 to 3 quarters of negative GDP, right? At least something like that. Don't quote me on that one. I think that's just from my memory here of what I've read in the past. And we'll have to see how obviously this plays out. But here you can see the U.S. inflation rate has ticked up obviously higher in August. We did peak here in basically last year in June where we were at 9.1%. We have been coming down quite nicely here ever since then. And then we had a little uptick here as well in not only in July, but in August as well. It looks like 3.7%, which isn't too bad. But the Fed wants to get it down to 2%, right? That's kind of their goal. They would like to see that at 2%. I think 3.2% isn't bad. I mean, you see other countries that are at a lot higher inflation rate than we are. So overall, I think we're doing okay, but obviously the markets didn't like it, okay? So that's it. We'll have to see obviously how this goes forward and when the Fed will actually raise interest rates again, possibly another quarter point. I mean, next meeting, we'll see. They did say that they're going to raise rates by the end of 2023. So we have something to look forward to, unfortunately. The rates are already high as it is. If you've bought a car recently, you know the rates are outrageous. Or if you bought a house even, it's just been crazy. So I think a lot of people are holding on to the houses that they do have, especially if they refinanced at much lower interest rates, around 2.5%, 3%, whatever those might be. Those people are going to be probably holding those homes for as long as they can if they don't have to move. I know I am right now, okay? All right, so that's it for that one. Let's take a look at Marathon here. Marathon obviously paid off quite a bit of debt here recently with a share dilution to pay off some of the debt here. So Marathon Digital Holdings announces completion of privately negotiated convertible note exchanges. I think this is actually pretty good. It looks like they have a pretty good deal here. The main thing is obviously they're paying off 417 million of convertible notes exchanged at approximately 21% discount. So that's a good thing. That's I'm not an accountant here, but based on what I'm hearing here and reading here, it's definitely good that they're getting a discount on what they owed, and that's a good thing for shareholders. Okay, when we look down here, here's what they had to say. So Marathon privately negotiated exchange agreements with certain holders of its 1% convertible senior notes due 2026. The notes, on average, the transactions represent an approximately 21% discount to the par value and result approximately 101 million in cash savings before transaction costs for the company. That's a lot. And that's a sizable chunk of change there. So I think that's great. If they're able to pull this off. Obviously, I thought they had a little bit more time to do that, but they're able to do that and save 101 million. I think that's fantastic. In total, Marathon exchanged 417 million aggregated principal amount of the notes held by such holders, the exchanges, for an aggregate of 31.7 million newly issued shares of Marathon common stock. Originally, we thought they were going to get 26 million shares, but when the news came out that they're going to be diluting shares, well, the stock price came down about 15% or so, so that's why they had to dilute more because of that. Okay. As a result, the company has reduced its long-term convertible debt by approximately 56% and realized approximately 101 million in cash savings before transaction costs. So I think, like I said, this is a good thing. Following the exchanges, 331 million aggregate principal amounts of the notes will remain outstanding. So we'll see. They have until 2026, obviously, to pay those off, but it does make their balance sheet look a lot healthier than what it was prior to this. Okay, so I think this is great. And then you guys can read on here as far as what Fred Thiel had to say, and then some of the frequently asked questions. Why pay off some of the debt early? That was obviously a lot of questions that we had here. I questioned that also. It's like, you have until 2026. Why not wait until the price of Bitcoin goes up in 2024, 2025, where you're closer to that? You also have possibly getting to all-time highs with Bitcoin. You could convert those shares into, well, to pay off the debt there, and you'd be diluting less. But they're saving 101 million. I think it's all right. I think that's fair enough. Why does reducing leverage matter? They go into that. And how does the transaction impact Marathon's financial condition? Obviously, it helps them out going forward, but it does obviously provide more shares out there in the market. Okay. So overall, I think this is a good thing for them, and it does put them in a much better place financially on the balance sheet going forward, especially as we get closer to the halving event. Okay, so that's it for that. Let me know what you guys think of this one, and let's take a look at how the miners have done over the last year, from last August to, this past August here in 2023. So as you guys know, I track everything as much as I can on all these miners as far as their monthly production, their hash rate, everything else like that. And then that allows us to do these kind of metrics as well, to take a look at how have they done in the last year. One of the things I wanted to take a look at, obviously, what was the Bitcoin network hash rate increase. And it looks like it's about 88% here, I believe, is what I have it at down here. 88.1% is what I calculated based on where we started in August, where we ended in August of this year. And we have obviously the hash rate. A couple things to note here. BitDeer, obviously we don't have the numbers for them for August. They just went public here this past year. Cypher, same thing. So they're going to see sizable increases in their hash rate, which normally wouldn't be the case if we went down to like when they actually reported those from like maybe January. So those are going to be a little bit off as far as my numbers are concerned. So you're going to see a little bit higher percentages on those guys and increases in the hash rate overall. What else do we have here? Stronghold. Stronghold is another one that, well, they stopped reporting their production updates here, it looks like in April of last year, because March was the last time that I had it. They stopped doing that for quite a while here until basically April of this year, when they started providing those numbers again. So there's going to be some numbers that are going to be off for them as well. But I want you guys to take note of that. Same thing with BitDeer. BitDeer, we don't have the numbers for them. Cypher, we don't have the numbers for them. Actually, we do. We can have an estimated. They provided some numbers here in their, I think it was their S4 before they went public. They provided some numbers as far as what they were mining. So we do have some numbers there. They may not be exact, okay? But just something for you guys to be mindful of. Now, looking at the numbers here, and the reason I wanted to take a look at this is obviously based on the network hash rate growth of 88% over the last year, from August to August of this year, and see how has that impacted the miners here, especially if they were able to grow above that or below that, and how that impacted their Bitcoin production here. Okay, so obviously, like I said, Bitcoin is at 88% over year from August. And when we look at TeraWulf is way up there, obviously, as far as production or hash rate increase. They're up substantially here right now. Hash rate percentage increase, 2,452%. And if you look at TeraWulf, they basically started last year in August around 39, and that's also being provided that I think they became public right around November, December area timeframe of last year as well. So those numbers are a little bit estimated here. Don't know exactly what they provided, but they provided that they mined over 120, what is it, 100 some, 100 some in the, well, those 3 months here in August, right? If we're looking at this July, August, and September of last year, okay? So that's kind of an estimated number here. But the production has definitely increased here. And so has their hash rate based on what we do know about them. They were at 192 petahash and increased quite substantially here. So that's why we have a huge increase for them. On that, Stronghold only increased about 33% roughly based on my estimated numbers. If they stayed at 3 exahash, I think it was, that I had them at down here. Yep. So from where we ended up last year, I know they gave back some miners because they couldn't pay for them. Excuse me. So that's kind of also estimated as well on that one. So they're at 33% as well. But you can see that their production here, as far as Bitcoin production, is actually up, even though we don't have the numbers for them down here, right? That's why they're up. I had them at 0 basically, and they're up to 219. I don't know what that production was back here. So this one could be a tricky one as well. Sphere, obviously they were mining last year, but they were only at 100 petahash right at that point. They did increase to about 1.2 exahash. That's why we have the 1,200% increase in them. Riot has increased quite well as well, but they were obviously a higher percentage from where they started in August. If you look at Riot here, in August they were at, this is petahash. August, Riot was at 4.8 exahash. They're obviously at 10.7 right now, getting to close to maybe 20 exahash by everything is said and done. So they're up to 122%. So obviously those have, by the numbers here, being up 122%, they should have produced more Bitcoin this year than they did last year. But because of all the curtailment that they did in August, because of the heat wave in Texas and everything going associated with that, they're actually down on production. That's the reason why. But they did get like 31 million, 32 million in energy credits. Mawson is down 18.5% from last year. That's why you can see here that their production of BTC is down 90 BTC. Then we got Marathon. Marathon's up 486% in hash rate. And you can see that they are up 878%. One thing to note with Marathon is also during that time frame, they had their Mount Harden facility that was hit with a storm that was down on production. So their production was cut way down during that time frame. If you look at Marathon as well, on the numbers here, you can see here August, they only mined 72 Bitcoins, right? Where they were prior to that mining 436, 299. They were doing a lot better. June is when they had the storm go through, and then July obviously wasn't impacted by that as well as August. They started to kind of get out of it with miners being plugged in at other places. Okay, so that's something to take into account as well, but definitely they should mine more going forward because their hash rate has been growing more than the 88% of the Bitcoin network hash rate. So this Marathon Iris, same thing, good growth there. They're over that at 153%. Then so they're up 109 Bitcoin over last year. Hut 8 is obviously down, but they're going to be merging with USBTC here at the end of the month, possibly. It's more or less, I think, set in stone right now that they will be merging with them unless something really happens. It's going to throw things off. But they're down 272 Bitcoin in production. They also were mining Ethereum at that time. Ethereum stopped mining in September of last year. That hurt them quite tremendously, along with Hive. Hive is only down 0.8% on their hash rate. They've done a better job as far as increasing their hash rate through Bitcoin mining, but they're still down 245 Bitcoin in production-wise. DMG is only up 19.6% in hash rate over the last year. Their production is down 22 Bitcoin over last year. And we got DigiHost is up 52%, and they're up, based on my numbers here, only up 2 Bitcoins over last year. So not a lot of difference there. Core Scientific was up 19.8% from where they started last year in August to this year. And you can see that their production is way down here at 369 Bitcoin less than they mined in last year, right? So they haven't really kept up with the network hash rate increase. They increased a lot last year, but that doesn't really help them out in the past year because they were kind of incrementally increasing still until they got into bankruptcy trouble here, Chapter 11, and then they actually sold some miners to pay off some of the debt. Then you got CleanSpark. CleanSpark is up 173% from last year from where they started. Their Bitcoin production is up 264 Bitcoins. Right, Cypher as well. We don't have data on them as far as how much they increased because we don't have the data on them. So they're basically at zero right there. Their BTC production did increase 323 Bitcoin, and that's basically because they had zero. So they're up 323 to what they mined in August. Okay, Bitfarms was up 43%, so obviously not enough to combat the network hash rate at 88%. So their production is actually down 151%, or not 151%, 151 Bitcoins. It's down. BitDeer as well. We don't have the data for them, so that's why that's zero here. But they are up 383% from last year because it was zero. They mined 383 in August. Then looking at BitDigital actually increased their hash rate by 83%, and you can see here how that corresponds to being down only 5 Bitcoin here over the last year. We're pretty close to the network hash rate as well. Argo is only up 8.1% over last year, and you can see that their Bitcoin production is down 130 Bitcoins. So basically what I'm trying to explain to you guys is, let's see if we can do this here on this one here. So as the network hash rate, right? Let me see here, not that one, I wanted this one. So as the network hash rate, right, goes up, if the miners are not installing the same amount of machines to increase to that or above it, at that point, they will not be profitable. So like we said, 88% was the increase over the last year. So this was year over year on it. If the miners were under that, they would be generating less Bitcoin because of it. If you're above it, well, then you're generating more BTC, right? The only thing that's going to help them as far as revenue-wise is Bitcoin price actually going up faster than the network hash rate increases. And at that point, even though that they're making less, they could still make about the same that they made last year or more, depending on where Bitcoin goes. Okay, so I hope that kind of explains things for you guys. The other thing is electricity costs. Electricity costs have been kind of wild over the last year or two. We've seen that as well. So it's really, I mean, you really have basically like 3 levers that really affect the Bitcoin network's profitability. You got the network hash rate, right? Network hash rate, and excuse my handwriting here, it's pretty sloppy. Network hash rate. You also have Bitcoin price, BTC price, and then you have electricity costs as well. Those things are the main things that will have an impact on the profitability of a miner going forward, especially as we get into halving events. So the concern here is with the miners that actually did not grow their hash rate above the 88%, is that they're going to have a really hard time when the halving event does happen. So that leaves us with Argo. Bitfarms, I'm not so concerned about that because they are going to be growing their hash rate going forward, but it's still tough there. They're also paying down their debt, so I'm a little bit less concerned about them, but there is concerning a little bit here. Core, obviously, as well. Core did say that they're going to be buying some miners from Bitmain, that they are in the process well, they structured a deal where they're going to pay X amount in cash and then the rest in shares. And Bitmain, I believe, agreed to that, so that will help them out potentially going into that. They're also mining a lot of Bitcoin as it is during each month here. Other one's going to be in concern is DMG. DigiHost is also going to be in concern into the halving event. Hive said they're going to be growing some more into before the halving event as well. We'll see if they're able to execute on that. Hut is joining with USBTC, so I think they're going to be okay there. The other one that's a concern is Mawson. Riot is obviously not a concern here because they have so many doggone credits as far as money, millions in credits that they can basically mine those at gross profit of basically 100% if they wanted to, depending when they can apply the credits on that. So not worried about that. Sphere, going forward, not growing much beyond where they are right now is going to be a concern. We still have 7 months before the halving event. Those are going to probably coming down here. Stronghold, like I said, those we have a little bit missing data here, so we're not sure exactly, but they're under the 33, or under the 88%. They're at 33%, so that is possibly a concern there. Stronghold also has a lot of debt, and they're also paying a lot in general and administrative costs and things like that. They need to get that under control. Otherwise, they're going to have a hard time. TerraWolf also, I don't think is going to be having any really issues here. They're planning on growing here. So those are the ones that are kind of the concern here. Anyone that's under 88% growing into the halving event, ones that grew less or so are going to be of concern. All right. And then when we look at actually the hash rate increases over this past year, we can see that Argo only increased 203 petahash. BitDigital increased 913 petahash, almost 1 exahash. So that's good there. Good there. BitDeer came public this year, so they obviously increased 7.2 exahash because we don't have the data for last year. Bitfarms was up about 1.7 exahash. Cypher also came public this year. They're up 5.8 exahash. CleanSpark, which was operating last year, they're up 5.9, and they're going to add another. What are they going to add? Another 7 exahash, possibly by the time the halving event happens. Core was up 2.5 exahash over last year. Definitely smaller growth here. DigiHost only 315 petahash. DMG up 150 petahash. Hive was actually down 30 petahash, and so was Hut 8 down 385 petahash. They've got issues obviously with a couple of facilities. The miners also having electrical issues with their circuit boards and things like that. They're getting those things fixed. Iris Energy, nice increase there, also 3.3 from last year. They did install quite a bit of miners in the end of second quarter, beginning of third quarter, but then they had to return a lot of the miners because they weren't profitable, but those were under the special purpose vehicles. Marathon, huge increase there, obviously, but that is based on the Mount Hard facility being shut down because of the storms. That's why they're having a huge increase here, and they're going to have a little bit more of an increase as well going into the halving event. Mawson down 331 petahash, Riot up 5.8, almost 5.9 exahash, Sphere up 1.2 exahash, Stronghold up only 1 exahash here, and then TerraWolf up 4.7 as well. So that's how things have stacked up. Okay, so as always, these spreadsheets are going to be available to my Patreon members. Those will get updated later on. I may even post this up, or at least the charts here on Twitter later on, and I might post it also to the YouTube members as well. But that's coming up, and we'll see how things progress going forward. Like I said, we still have a long ways to go. We still have at least a year before I think we start going really into the bull run here, and maybe a little bit longer before we see all-time highs. So we're going to be up and down. It's, part of the nature here with Bitcoin, especially as we get into the halving event, and we'll see how it goes. I'm still very optimistic that we're going to see all-time highs possibly at the end of 2024 or early 2025, but we'll see. Okay. In the meantime, I'm dollar cost averaging in, buying as much as I can with the cash that I do have, and really just getting ready for that bull run that we do have in 2024 and 25. Let me know what you guys are doing. Okay. So that's it. Hope you guys have a wonderful evening and wonderful night. I'll see you guys tomorrow, possibly if there's anything to report on. Otherwise, I'm not going to waste your guys' time with a bunch of BS. So I hope you guys have a wonderful night. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.